Well, really, a structured settlement is nothing more than a person that's going to receive a settlement taking part of that settlement in cash and part of that settlement in future periodic payment. For example, we might have a dog bite case or something like that, and they're going to get a smaller amount of money, but that's going to allow that kid, if set up properly, to go to college where they might not otherwise have been able to go to college.
Todd Morrow is our guest today. Todd is the founder of Morrow Settlement Services, headquartered in Driftwood, Texas. Today, we're going to focus on structured settlements. This is an extraordinarily important subject. One of our concerns of the attorney is not just the amount that we get the clients in their settlement, but is also to protect their financial future. And that's where Todd comes in. Todd has an accounting degree and is a licensed CPA. He has decades of experience helping injured people protect their financial futures. This is After the Crash. I'm attorney Dave Craig, managing partner and one of the founders of the law firm of Craig, Kelley Faultless. I've represented people who have been seriously injured or who have had a family member killed in a semi or other big truck wreck for over 30 years. Following the wreck, their lives are chaos. Often they don't even know enough about the process to ask the right questions. It is my goal to empower you by providing you with the information you need to protect yourself and your family. In each and every episode, I will interview top experts and professionals that are involved in truck wreck cases. This is After the Crash. Well, this is After the Crash, the podcast. Today, we're fortunate enough to have Todd Morrow from Morrow Settlement Services on as a guest. Todd, just why don't you start off, tell us where you live and a little bit about yourself.
Okay, thank you, Dave. I'm a CPA and a settlement planner with Morrow Settlement Services, and we are based in Austin, Texas, but we work with plaintiffs all over the United States. So,
and I know you've got a CPA. And so tell me a little bit about your education. Where did you get your CPA from or your undergraduate degree from?
I went to a college called Southwest Texas State University in San Marcos, Texas. It's now called Texas State University, but when I was there, it was Southwest Texas State University. I graduated there in 3.5 years with an accounting degree. And then about a year later, I sat for the CPA exam and became a CPA.
And what was it that got you into settlement or structured settlement in the settlement business?
Well, it's interesting. I thought that I wanted to, become an accountant and be in public accounting. And in working with some different folks, I was working for an insurance agency and also had started an accounting firm on the side. And I met a guy named James Street, and we started talking for several months, and he was telling me about, a unique business that had to do with settlement planning. And over time we kept talking, and he said, I think this business of mine is going to take off, and I'd really like you to come on and help me get it going. And I need somebody with your background to help with the accounting, but you can also learn the entire business. And so he hired me, and as we started getting more and more into the settlement planning side, that's what I really fell in love with. And so we ended up hiring an accountant, a true accountant, and then I started going out with James and getting to meet with claimants, which is what I really enjoy.
And I knew James, and James was bigger than life. He's no longer with us, but if anybody who'd ever met him would never forget him.
That's for sure.
He was kind of one of the pioneers in this industry, wasn't he?
He really was. He was the first one to designate his company as a plaintiff-only structured settlement firm. And I remember that there wasn't anybody else out there that did designate themselves as plaintiff-only. There were some folks that might have done a little bit on both sides, but, done some on the defense side and some on the plaintiff side. But James saw a need for there to be somebody that would just look out for the plaintiff's interest. And we started marketing, and we knew that this product, structured settlements, was really meant for the claimant, and that they should have their own representation and be able to design their own plans and get to pick which companies they use and things like that.
Why not? And today, my goal is to inform people about what structured settlements are. I've been practicing law for over 35 years. And, I have a lot of clients who don't know what a structured settlement is, or they don't know they're not correct in what they think a structured settlement is. And I think it's real important for people to kind of have some knowledge, have a little bit of background before they go into it. We try to advise our clients and give them options. But not all law firms do that, and not all young lawyers understand what structured settlement is. So my podcast is kind of designed for average, everyday folks who might find themselves in a horrific situation where they're looking at how do they preserve the money that they might get from a settlement or a jury verdict, and then a settlement after that verdict. And so that's what we wanted to do. And I've worked with you over the years, and I thought you'd be a great person to come in and kind of explain to people what a structured settlement is. And I know that after James passed away, you started your own business, and I've had an opportunity to work with you when you were with James, and I've worked with you since then. And one of the things you do is you only do plaintiff side. And plaintiff, for people who don't understand what a plaintiff is the person who is injured. We call them the plaintiff because when we file a lawsuit, they're the plaintiff in the lawsuit, but we're talking about the victims. The victims are the people who get hurt or lose or family who lose a loved one. And your company only works for the victims. And tell us a little bit, is that an advantage? And if so, why is that?
Well, really, a structured settlement is nothing more than a person that's going to receive a settlement taking part of that settlement in cash and part of that settlement in future periodic payments, which they get to help design. And now it's a little different depending on if it's a minor or an adult and what their particular situation is. But for example, for minors, a lot of times you'll have a settlement and you'll want to set it up to help take care of college for the minor once they reach the age of majority. And with adults, sometimes they'll want to take part of their settlement. Let's say, for example, they're getting $250,000 and they want to take $50,000 in cash, and they want to design the other $200,000 to pay out future periodic payments, say monthly for 10 years or 15 years or whatever they want to design to help them pay the bills and help them budget. And the key reason why it's good to have somebody that's on the plaintiff side working for you is because not only can we help you analyze your financial situation and help you design a plan that fits your needs, you can also have somebody to look out for you with which life companies have the best ratings, which life companies have the best rates for you. If you don't have somebody on your side, it's very possible that you're not getting the best rates, or that you're using companies that might be related to the defendant. And sometimes that's okay, but you want to have somebody checking it out to make sure that the plaintiff is getting the best bang for the buck.
I know that I've been in mediations before where the trucking company that caused the catastrophic event, they have a certain insurance company, and that insurance company really wants to push an annuity of a related company. And so all the quotes will come in from a related company, and they push out this information to your clients, and they'll give you a sheets, and say, here you go, give these to your clients. And I always say, no, thanks. We have our own person, and we'll work with somebody like yourself. But I think that, a lot of times clients don't understand that, is that sometimes, they're sitting there in a mediation or in a settlement conference and they're getting these sheets and they have no idea that the company that they're looking at is actually related to the company who they've got the lawsuit against, or the insurance company for the company. And again, like you said, that may not necessarily be a bad thing, but certainly not knowing that's not right.
Exactly. Essentially, what they're doing in a lot of those cases is taking money out of one pocket and putting it in the other pocket. And if they're not giving you a competitive rate, then it's another way that they're taking advantage of the claimant.
Well, one of the things that I remember years ago reading, and I think it was back in 2007, there was a survey done by American General Life, and it was eye-opening to me. It showed that most folks, that when they get a settlement, a personal injury settlement, that money is 100% is gone in a short period of time. And only like 10, 12, 15% have 75% of it in a relatively quick period of time. So that's scary, is that, people think they can handle their own finances and they have the best intentions. And yet statistically, or, according to studies, that's not what happens.
That's correct. I see these types of stories happen, all the time, where somebody gets a large settlement, and it's human nature. Anybody that comes into a large amount of money that's not used to it, they're going to struggle a little bit. And I come into situations all the time where they're scared to death because they're getting advice from all different people, family members, friends. You need to do this, you need to do that, and they're scared to death because they don't want they don't want to do the wrong thing. And so whenever I come in, I try to completely sit down, analyze their situation, look at their needs. Lots of times somebody may be injured in such a way that they're going to need to replace equipment every 3 or 4 or 5 years. So we can help design a monthly payment that takes care of their monthly expenses, but they may have a big expense that's going to come up every 3 or 4 or 5 years for a ban or whatever it might be. And so we design another lump sum payment to come out, whenever it's appropriate, so that they can replace the equipment or whatever they might need.
And I think that's, I think that, as the plaintiff lawyer, unfortunately, there's some lawyers who look at it as their job is just to get the money for the folks. And certainly that's a big part of it. I care about the results I get. We work hard to make sure that we maximize the client's recovery. But beyond that, you have to worry about their future. At least I do, and our firm does. And so if you're going to do that, then you need to take that into consideration, and you need to at least have discussions with your clients and give them those options. Obviously, it's their choice, but to give them the options, and certainly structured settlement is a way that can provide income indefinitely up until their death, and it can be paid out as they determine. And so I think that's as an option that I think attorneys should do. And if you're a client and you're listening to this, one of the things you may want to do is approach your attorney and say, hey, look, because some attorneys are just looking at it as a settlement, and timing is important in these cases. And so if you are listening to this and you happen to be a client and your attorney's getting ready to settle, before he actually settles or before he actually gets the money, he needs to or she needs to discuss structured settlement. Tell us why the timing is important.
The timing is important because there's a couple of parts of the IRS code that allow for a structured settlement. Section 104A2 of the IRS code, allows for a personal physical injury recovery to be tax-free to the recipient. It goes on to say that if you take that recovery over a period of time, that the interest earned is also tax-free. So it's important that it's set up properly from the beginning. And one of the things that has to be done is we have to include some language that the IRS requires into the settlement documents. And we have to list out exactly the types of payment plans that the client chooses. So the reason why, if you're going to do a structured settlement, you need to get somebody involved like my firm to make sure that the proper language is in the settlement documents, make sure that they're protected going forward, and that has to be part of the process initially for it to be tax-free.
And isn't it important that the money not come to the attorney first? And so like if an attorney settles and they collect the money, then according to the IRS rules, it's too late, correct?
You're exactly right. And I failed to mention that, but yes, if the money comes to the attorney's trust account, that's considered constructive receipt. And therefore, the client loses the ability to structure the money and get the tax-free benefit. They could still go out and purchase an annuity or something like that, and the growth on it would be taxable. But to get the tax-free benefit of a structured settlement, the money has to go directly from the defendant to whichever life insurance company that we choose that's going to provide the structured settlement.
I think it's important because a lot of clients don't even know that their settlements are tax-free. So when someone settles a case, just for the listeners, if you happen to have a case, when you settle the case, at least currently, the proceeds of your, generally in a personal injury or wrongful death case, generally your proceeds are going to be tax-free. But once you get that money and you put it in your own account, then you're going to be taxed on any interest or profits you make from investments, correct?
That is correct. So, the fact that the entire thing's tax-free to you is great, but if you want to take advantage of being able to get tax-free interest ongoing into the future, you would have to place part of the money or some portion of the money into a structured settlement. So, but if they take the entire amount in cash, as long as it's for the personal physical injury or wrongful death, that recovery is tax-free. They could then go to a bank or a financial person and place it in other investments, which a lot of times we recommend that they do part of their money into other financial investments, because there are some advantages and disadvantages to a structured settlement. And one of the disadvantages is that once you set up a structured settlement, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to change it. So that's why you need some flexibility. And in most cases, we'll set up part of the money either in a trust or for them to take in cash, so they'll have some flexibility with their money. There is a trade-off with the structure. The fact that it's not flexible is not necessarily a good thing, but it also can be a good thing because it keeps people from, it protects them from themselves, and it protects them from outside sources to have part of the money in a structured settlement. But the cash money that they take, we always recommend that they do that if they're in a position to do that, and then they go and put it into other investments. And if they earn interest or earn income on the money after they take possession of the funds, then that interest or that income then becomes taxable to them.
And I think that, it's important for people to understand that it's not all or nothing, like you just mentioned. I worked with you when your company, when you were back with James Street, and I've worked with you since. And there's many times when we've mixed it up, where we've done part of the settlement in a structure, part of it in trust, part of it in investments. And that's why it's important to have people who are qualified, who are CPAs, and who have the support staff around them, or bring in independent people to evaluate what is in the best interest. But a structure can grow tax-free, which is a great advantage. And it's a huge advantage when you're dealing with a child who you don't want to see get all the money when they're turn 18. So it's huge, and the parent actually has some control over when those payouts are going to be. And so those are some huge advantages, and we'll go into more detail. There's huge advantages, but you guys often recommend mixing it up and using a little bit of different tools.
Yeah, that's correct. And that's kind of how the industry has evolved over time. I've been doing this for about 25 years. And in the beginning, we were pretty much limited to doing just structured settlements. And in fact, everybody called themselves structured settlement brokers. The industry over time has evolved into all of us becoming, more well-rounded. And so really what we call ourselves now is settlement planners. So we come in, we analyze each case because each case is unique, and we help the party decide, what fits their needs. So there are some cases where we come in and we analyze the situation and we figure out that a structured settlement may not be something that they should be using in a case. So we'll come in and say, okay, in this situation, we're looking at a case where this person really should put 100% of their proceeds in a trust, for example. Or like you said, it may be a situation where we recommend that they put most, if not all of their money in with a financial advisor and get a diversified portfolio. But in most cases, there is usually a need to put at least some portion of their settlement into a structured settlement. And we recommend that. But at the same time, we do not put pressure on anybody. It's their decision ultimately. And what we do is just provide them with the information necessary by analyzing all different types of things, their government benefits that they may be on, all different things that they've got going on as far as debt and things like that. So we analyze each case individually, and then we go through and make recommendations, and ultimately it's their decision. And if they decide that they don't want to put any money in a structured settlement, we understand that, but most of the time a structured settlement is really a good tool because there's really nothing better for being able to provide monthly income, or like you said with a minor, being able to spread the money out over time, and let these young people make a mistake maybe with the first batch of money that they get. But they learn from that, and it's not the end of the road for them. They have more payments coming. They can learn from it. And I think that's one of the most important things about a structured settlement, especially for a minor, is not necessarily the rate of return that you get or anything like that. It's the fact that you're protecting them, letting them learn, and being able to provide payments into the future for them.
And I know, I think I had a case where my client will get like $69 million over their lifetime in future payments, but they also got quite a bit up front. And part of the money was set up in a trust for the family because the person was a minor. And so that they could help take care of his needs, which there would definitely going to be significant needs. But we could take care of his needs on the front end and give the guardians some control of some money and have the use of some money in case there were psychological needs or psychiatric needs or medical needs or whatever. And then they wanted to control at certain points in his life, make sure college, if he wanted to go to college, was taken care of, but make sure that, when he was old enough to buy a house, that he had those options available to him. And his money jumped up significantly over the years. And that was important to the guardians because they had some control over it. They didn't have to wait. They could all talk about it. They could talk to financial planners. They could talk to your company, and they could make a decision. Okay, what do we think as a group is in his best interest? And they didn't want an 18-year-old to make those decisions. So when he turned 18, all of a sudden he has access to all this money, and he may make mistakes. And so I think that's a great opportunity where we use multiple tools: investments, savings accounts or investment accounts, trust accounts, as well as we place structures through 4 different companies. So I think that there's a lot of flexibility when you're looking at these. Definitely.
And we come in and help set up trusts on a large number of our cases for the reasons you discussed. And then there's other reasons. You can also have a situation where somebody is on Medicaid, for example, and they really need to be able to stay on Medicaid. They're getting this settlement, and if they take the settlement in cash, it will then disqualify them for Medicaid. And sometimes the settlement may not be enough money to take care of someone's future medical expenses. And so therefore, we want to maximize what we can do with the settlement dollars. And you can set up what's called a special needs trust for these folks. And if you set up a special needs trust, you can place, part of the funds from the settlement into the trust, and you can still set up a structured settlement to feed into that trust and replenish the money over time. There's an advantage to doing some of both. With the structured settlement, you can set it up outside to pay into the trust, and therefore you're not subject to the annual trust fees that are charged by trust companies to manage the trust. And I'm not trying to say that you shouldn't, allow, there to be plenty of money in the trust for the trustee to be able to manage it properly, because the trust fee is a necessary thing. They need to be able to make money as well. But the fact of the matter is, if you have a large settlement, and let's just take a quick example. If you had a client getting $2 million, and I'm simplifying this, obviously, and let's say you put $1 million into the trust initially, and you structured $1 million to pay into the trust over time, either monthly payments or annual or whatever makes sense. The trust fee, and let's just make it easy on the trust fee and say it's 1%. They're going to charge 1% annually on the $1 million or $10,000 a year to manage the trust. The $1 million that you structured outside of the trust is not subject to that that 1% annual fee. So therefore, you're saving $10,000 a year in trust fees, while you've got a little bit of diversification out here with a tax-free product that's going to feed into the trust. So there's good and bad about both products, but a trust is often a great tool to protect government benefits, or like you said, to kind of provide a goalkeeper for a young person so that they're not able to, use the money or use it all at once.
And I think, and I think that's smart. I mean, when I was 18 years old, I'd had a nice car. When I turned 18, if I had money available, so I wouldn't have made the right decisions. And so it's to protect people from themselves. Well, I think some people don't even know what a structured settlement is. So tell us what a structured settlement, what we're purchasing.
Okay. A structured settlement is a specialized annuity product in most cases. And it's not an annuity that you and I can go down the street and purchase. There's a lot of differences to a structured settlement and just a typical annuity. And I have to clarify that, because there are a lot of folks out there that they hear the word annuity and they automatically, think, have negative thoughts about it because of some of the financial advisors and, out there will talk negative about some regular annuities. But with a structured settlement annuity, it only applies to personal physical injury or wrongful death recoveries. And what happens is the annuity is a funding vehicle for your settlement if you're a claimant. So another difference with the structured settlement is you can set it up to pay out however you want to. There's no limitations on when you start the payments. Whereas with a regular annuity, if you start them too early, you get an early withdrawal penalty. There's none of that with the structured settlement. You can make payments that start out immediately. They can go for a person's lifetime. You can do it for a shorter period of time, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. You can also set up lump sum payments at key times during a person's life. That's another thing that's not really something that's common with regular annuities. But you could say, okay, this person, when they turn 25, let's give them a large lump sum because they may be looking to, put a down payment on a home, or there could be a variety of reasons why you'd want to set up lump sums into the future. So essentially, a structured settlement is an annuity product. It's provided by a very small list of life insurance companies, and there's a reason why there's just a small number of life insurance companies that provide structured settlements.
And I think that so you're buying from these select group of life insurance companies, and you're buying these special annuities. But it's important, and I think people are concerned, and the economy has gone up and down. Certainly during my career, I've seen a lot of ups and downs over the last 35 years. And so sometimes people are concerned about, well, who will they be able to pay these annuities? And one of the things that I know you do is you look at the financial security of the life insurance that we're thinking about purchasing the annuities from. Talk a little bit about that.
Okay. Yes, there's only about 8 life insurance companies that provide structured settlements, and most of them are the biggest, strongest life insurance companies in the world. And there's a reason for that. A lot of times with the settlement has to be approved by a judge. And so with a minor, for example, a judge has to approve the settlement in most cases. And judges and courts are not going to approve a minor's money, for example, going with a company that's not, one of the top financial institutions in the world. So there are, like I said, around 8 life insurance companies that are in the business. To give you some examples, there's New York Life, MetLife, Berkshire Hathaway, Prudential, Pacific Life. There's a few others. I won't name all of them. But all of those companies have ratings, financial ratings. And some of the top financial ratings firms like AM Best or Standard & Poor's will provide a rating for these companies. And all of the companies that are involved with structured settlements are among the top financial ratings that you can get from a company like Standard & Poor's or AM Best. So not only have these companies been around for hundreds of years, they get the top ratings from outside companies, outside sources that have, financial people looking at the financial statements of these companies, constantly, and keeping those ratings updated over time. So we only use the top companies in the world, and that's important because there are some companies out there that will have, like you said, a related carrier that may not have as high ratings. And again, sometimes that's okay if it's a shorter term plan or if it's a smaller amount of money. But if you're talking about a major settlement, you want to make sure that money is safe. And the companies we use are among the safest financial institutions in the world. And that's that gives everybody peace of mind and security when they're going to do a structured settlement.
And I think that's important. I think it goes back to why I like to use people who only represent the victims, like yourself, your company, because I want to know the straight scoop. And I went to law school, and they don't teach you this stuff in law school. There was no class on structured settlements. There's no class on whether you use an AM Best or a Moody or a Fitch, or, there was nothing telling me about the ratings. And then, my God, the ratings they're similar, but they're different between which company. And so if you don't know what you're looking at, you can think, well, guys, this is an A, and maybe that's good or bad, but there's subtle differences between the different rating companies. And so we should go to people who know this stuff. I think people need to understand that even though a lawyer may have knows how to handle a case or may have been able to get your case settled, doesn't necessarily mean that they understand the nuances of a structured settlement or how to pick the right insurance companies.
That's exactly right. And really, I've always said this because I see, oftentimes I hear about and see cases where they didn't have any representation. The claimant didn't have any representation on their side. And really, the best plaintiff attorneys out there are the ones that know that they can have somebody looking out for their client. And we're trying to educate attorneys, constantly through, CLEs and attending attorneys conferences and things like that to help to educate them that they do have a resource available for their clients to look out for all of these things that we're talking about. And there for the longest time, and I've been working with you for a number of years, that's how I knew which attorneys were some of the best out there, is the ones that knew that they could bring somebody in like me, didn't have to be me, but somebody that was representing plaintiffs. And it's getting more and more common where plaintiff attorneys do bring in their own representation, but way back 15, 20 years ago, it wasn't all that common. And you were on the cutting edge whenever you were bringing us in for cases that far back in the future.
And I see it. I still see it. I see people who hold themselves out as plaintiff only. And I've been at mediations, and lo and behold, they're over there working with the insurance companies. And I'm like, well, I thought you were only plaintiff only. Well, most of the time I am. I'm like, well, that's not really right. And so I do think that the attorneys and the clients should ask their attorneys if they're considering a structured settlement, does this company, because there's some very big companies that do both sides. And then there's some smaller companies that primarily do one side, but then every now and then they dabble on the other side. But I think it's a legitimate question to ask your attorney is, hey, does this company that I'm working with, do they only do plaintiff side? Do they only? Because they're going to look out for your interest. They're going to get paid the same, regardless of which side. So why not pick somebody that's got only your interest at stake rather than the insurance company's interest?
That's correct. And there are certain cases that are very complicated where, the defendant will have their structured settlement expert involved, but the plaintiff will also have somebody involved. And it's the type of case where you can kind of see a benefit to having somebody on both sides. So it's common in a lot of these, complicated cases or more comprehensive cases to have somebody that works for the defense side involved for their purposes. And that's a totally different purpose whenever you're involved on the defense side than it would be on the plaintiff side. We're working directly with the injured party. We know over time and through proper planning exactly what this person might need in the future, and we know how to design the plan to fit their needs. We know how to take care of making sure that the company that we place their money with is one of the top financial institutions in the world, that their money is going to be safe. But sometimes the defendant will want to have their person involved to make sure, from their perspective, that they are protected on the defense side. And so in those cases, a lot of times what we'll do is we'll establish a co-broker agreement, and we will agree that once we figure out what the claimant wants to do, we will send it over to the defense broker, which is what we call them on the defense side, and we will allow them to review for their purposes what they need to review.
And I know that, we certainly have had that, and then typically, as my understanding is, the brokers kind of split the fee. And I guess some people are probably wondering how, can I afford somebody to do all this, financial planning? And I guess maybe talk a little bit about how you get paid and when you do this work.
That's a good question. And with structured settlements, the way we get paid is we get paid a one-time finder's fee. Some people might call it a one-time commission by the life insurance company where we place the settlement funds in that particular case. So we're not tied to any one life insurance company. All of the life insurance companies pay us the same one-time fee. And because we're not tied to any one, that frees us up to be able to shop any potential final quote with all of the life markets and make sure that we are providing the best rate for the claimant, on top of the fact of making sure it's with a top company. But whichever company ends up doing or handling the money will pay us a one-time finder's fee. And in those cases where we have a broker on our side and a broker on the defense side, we will split that fee, that one-time fee, with the claimant. So it's not being taken directly out of any claimant's money. We're essentially paid by the life insurance company, and it's at no charge to the claimant themselves. We all know that the life insurance company does take that into account with their rates and things like that, but it's not something that's taken directly out of the funds from the claimant.
And I think it's what's important too for people to understand is that a lot of times you're giving advice and you're talking to people and you're making proposals and you're giving them plans. And I know in my office we've called you before and just said, hey, this is the case, and can you send us some ideas? And our clients don't even get charged for that because, let's say, up until annuity is actually purchased. So, clients can have access to information from people like you, really at no charge until something's been purchased. Correct?
That is correct, and we do a whole lot of cases where we will provide options. We'll explain the options. We'll help the client understand everything about the options. And then it turns out to be a case where it just doesn't fit to do a structured settlement. So in those cases, a lot of times we'll talk about some other things that we can help them get set up. But if they decide not to do a structured settlement, then we're not paid, but they're not charged anything either. So you're exactly right on that.
And so if you're listening to this and you've got a case, or you're a young attorney, there's really no reason not to reach out to somebody like Todd, because you can get information. The information is not going to hurt you. You can get the information and then you can make a decision. Does this make sense to me or not? But if you don't have the information, then you can't possibly know what this investment could do for you in the future. And so I would strongly recommend that anybody out there listening, that there is absolutely I can't think of any reason why you would not, on any type of significant personal injury settlement, why you wouldn't want to at least get the information.
That's exactly right. And we, like I said before, we will oftentimes help the attorneys. Another aspect to what we do, we will help attorneys, for example, analyze their life care plan. And sometimes in a case, there's a life care plan that projects the future needs of the claimant. And sometimes those can be very extensive and cover a wide variety of future medical expenses and things like that. So what we will do a lot of times is we will have the attorney send us the life care plan. We will take a look at that life care plan and analyze it and figure out what the annual costs would be over time. A lot of times they'll give you what the annual costs are on the actual report, but sometimes they won't, and we'll figure that out. And then we will go in and see what it would cost if we funded that future life care plan with a structured settlement. So, for example, let's say a person has $100,000 a year that it's going to cost them for future medical expenses. We can basically take that $100,000 a year figure and plug it in and figure out how much it would cost using a tax-free structured settlement to provide that $100,000 a year, so that they know that they could take care of the future medical, for X amount of dollars today. So basically, we're providing them a present value figure of what it would cost today to fund that future life care plan. So we do that at no charge to the attorneys as well. And that helps them kind of know, what's it going to take medically to take care of this person for the rest of their life. And lots of times the person might have health insurance or other things that'll help pay for that, but they can look at the worst case scenario. What would we need to get for this claimant if they had to pay for all of it out of their pocket? And so we can help them do that as well.
And I think it's important for people to understand that this isn't some sketchy product. This has been around. The United States Congress, they passed, I think, in the early 80s, the statute that deals with this, the Periodic Payment Settlement Act. And so I think it was even in the 70s, they started utilizing it. I think it started in Canada. And then the United States adopted it and said, we support this. And then the Internal Revenue Code has been drafted to kind of protect peoples and make sure that they get this money to them interest-free when they get the payouts. So this is something that's actually been around since the early 80s, right?
That is correct. And early on, it was used, I believe, in more of the mass tort type cases and things like that. But it has evolved over time to where it is used on a wide variety of cases, and it's used very often for a lot of the different reasons that we've talked about.
Now, in all the years, 35 years, I've put people, not for probably 25 years, I've put people in structured settlements. And I can say that in my personal history, I've not seen anyone not get paid. Everyone that was supposed to get paid got paid, or is still getting paid. And so from my perspective, at least, it looks secure. Now, we've been careful in what companies we put it in. There's been times when we put it in multiple companies because we're talking tens of millions of dollars. And so you don't want to just put that all in one company just in case. But in your experience, how safe has structured settlements been?
Structured settlements, as I've said previously, they're one of the most secure and safe tools that anyone can use. The companies that we're talking about have been around for hundreds of years. They're highly rated. It's as secure a place as I know of for somebody to place part of their money. Now, it doesn't mean you shouldn't take precautions, like you said. On larger cases, a lot of times we don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket. So we will then spread the money out and place it with 2 or 3 or 4 life insurance companies, or however many is appropriate for the amount that we're working with. So it's very secure. There have been, to my knowledge, no companies that have failed to make payments, for structured settlements. Back in the 80s, there was a company called Executive Life that did provide some structured settlements that went into insolvency. And so when that happened, the other structured settlement companies that provide structures stepped up and came in and took over those payments there might have been a delay for some people in getting them while that whole process took place. But to my knowledge, none of them went without getting their payments. And that was just one example, over the long history of structures where a company went bankrupt and had that happen. But luckily for us, the rest of the industry stepped up and made sure that those folks, didn't have to go without their payments. And since then, there's been, no problem at all. All the companies have remained strong and been able to meet their future obligations.
So when you sit down the structure, so make sure clients understand, they can take part of their settlement. They don't have to take all of it. So if they have some immediate needs, or they will have some desires that they want to buy a house, or they want to buy a car, or whatever it is, they can take some money up front, and then they can invest however much they decide into a structure. And then that structure provides guaranteed payments. They make the determination, but once that's set, it's set. It's not going to change once you agree to it, and it's going to make these guaranteed payments like clockwork whenever the dates are appropriate. Correct?
That's correct. And a lot of times people, will say, well, interest rates, because the structured settlement is based on an annuity product, and it's a fixed rate of return. And that's also a requirement, in the IRS code, that it be fixed and determinable. So because it's a fixed rate of return, and because interest rates right now are at historical lows, a lot of people will say, well, it might not be worth it to do a structured settlement. But I always believe that because it's tax-free and because, it's guaranteed, that there is always a place for a structured settlement in most cases, because there's not any other financial product out there that's better designed to provide a monthly payment. And the reason I say that is because if you have money sitting in the stock market, for example, that's usually a long-term investment, and you don't want to sit there and have to be pulling money out on a monthly basis to live off of the money that you put into the stock market. That's not beneficial, and it's not a prudent way to invest in market investments, because most financial advisors will tell you that you need to leave money in the market over time for long periods of time to get the benefit of the long-term gains and things like that in the stock market. So a structured settlement annuity is specifically designed to put money, to take a portion of the settlement, put it with a life insurance company, and they will pay you back monthly over time. And that's what they've designed this product to do. And so therefore, there is no better way to provide a monthly payment. And like you were saying, there's instances where you may decide that you put a bigger percentage of the money. You're going to get, let's say you're going to get a settlement of $1 million. After analyzing all the financial needs and everything else, you may decide in some cases that you want to put $750,000 into the structured settlement and take $250,000 in cash. But there might be other cases where it makes more sense for this particular claimant to take $750,000 in cash and structure $250,000. And there may be cases where they shouldn't put any of the money in a structured settlement, like we've discussed before. But each case is different, and I think you have to analyze them and figure out what makes sense.
I think that's key. I mean, I think that every case is different. Everybody's financial situation is different. And certainly the more information that you can give people like yourself that are helping advise, the more information you have, the better position you're in to make, appropriate advice. So if somebody is extraordinarily wealthy, already has their house paid, I mean, they may look at things differently than if they need medical treatment for the rest of their lives, and and for whatever reason they've been kicked off of Medicare or Medicaid, I mean, so everybody's different, whether financials are different. And that's something you need to know, I assume, in helping people advise them through this process.
That's right. And the earlier that we can be involved, a lot of times the better, because if we're able to come in early and get to know the family and the claimant, and get to develop some rapport with them to where they become more open with us and give us all of their information that we need to help them better make a decision when the time comes and they do get a settlement. So lots of times we'll get involved early enough to be able to do a better job of planning, and then also another thing that we do a lot of times is we'll attend mediations with the attorney, and that gives us a good amount of time to gather information, both that we can get through the mediation process and through talking with the claimants and their families. And that's a good time a lot of times for us to be able to slowly provide them with the information, because you don't want them to be on information overload. On one side they're trying to get the case settled. On the other side, they're worried about what they're going to do if they do get it settled. So the longer period of time you have to work with somebody, obviously the better job you're going to be able to do for them, and also they'll end up with a result that they're happy with.
I think that's a good point. Is that, I mean, I don't always settle my cases at mediation. In fact, statistically, I rarely settle my cases at mediation, because that's usually not why I'm there. I'm usually there to try to inform the other side of stuff maybe the insurance carrier hasn't seen, because maybe it got filtered out through the lawyer. And so I'm trying to get the value up. But I like to have, oftentimes I'll have structured people there, and I've had you there before. I've also had you there with an independent financial planner who is just paid by the hour, not based upon any kind of commission, who's more local to Indiana, who I've had cases where there's a parent who has a claim where their spouse has gotten killed. There's children who have claims who are also injured. And the needs are completely different between those three people. And again, structured people, most of my clients love a structure for their children, especially if they don't have major financial type of needs. They love controlling when that money is going to come out. And so you can do a mixture, but that, I would think it would be beneficial, because you get to spend time, whether the case gets settled or not, you get to meet the clients, you get to check and ask them questions about their finances and start building that relationship.
And that's exactly right. And I really enjoy whenever we do have that time together with the claimants and we get to be involved in the mediation process, or sometimes even before that, we might have a preliminary meeting, either a Zoom meeting or an in-person meeting. And the more time that we get to spend with them, like I've said, we are able to do so much of a better job, because it's not a cookie cutter type of product. Everybody's different. Everybody's needs are different. Sometimes even on a smaller settlement, that might be more important that we set that up properly than it is on a larger settlement. So, for some kids, for example, we might have a dog bite case or something like that, and they're going to get a smaller amount of money, but that's going to allow that kid, if set up properly, to go to college where they might not otherwise have been able to go to college. So every case is different, and the earlier we can get involved in the process, the more we can analyze everything that needs to be analyzed.
And I assume now with Zoom, we're doing so much by Zoom, I assume that you'd be willing to meet clients by using this technology, which is, the Zoom, and there's no reason not to bring somebody in and get you in early, correct?
Exactly. And that's one of the things we're trying to, help when we're out educating plaintiff attorneys about our products and services. That's one of the things that I try to let them know, that the earlier that they can get us involved. And now with Zoom and technology, you're right, it's actually much easier to do it early, because we're based in Austin, Texas, and we have no problem traveling anywhere we need to go. But a lot of times, it's a lot more cost effective. It's a lot more efficient to at least do some preliminary meetings by Zoom or by phone.
One last thing that sometimes clients ask me is, what happens if I die? I'm getting these payments, but what happens if I pass away? Because I'm supposed to have these guaranteed payments. Can you talk just briefly a little bit about, how does annuities, how do these products deal with death?
That's a good question. And one of the things that you're able to do if you place part of your funds in a structured settlement is you can name a beneficiary or multiple beneficiaries to the remaining payments if something were to happen to the claimant. So their money is not going to be lost. It's not going to go away. Any remaining guaranteed payments will be paid tax-free. It's still tax-free to the beneficiary, which is another key thing. Those remaining guaranteed payments will be paid to the beneficiary or beneficiaries of the claimant.
Todd, is there anything else that you think folks that that are victims of a catastrophic event? Again, I do a lot of semi-tractor trailer cases, and unfortunately, those often lead to catastrophic injuries. Is there anything else that you can think of that you think folks should know about structured settlements, or how to protect their either their verdicts paid out as a settlement or their settlements?
Dave, I think we've covered it pretty well. I would just reiterate that getting us involved early with the claimants, them getting the ability to get all of the information they need, even if they choose not to do a structured settlement. And we didn't go into a lot of different areas of settlement planning because this has been more concentrated on structured settlements in general. But, we're able to look at lots of different areas for them, government benefits. Lots of times we'll shop for health insurance plans, in certain cases. If they're not going to be able to stay on Medicaid or they don't have health insurance, we'll look into health insurance plans for them. We do lots of other things for attorneys that include like lien resolution and things like that. And that's the topic for another day, but just involving us early allows us to help the claimants. And I would highly recommend that they always have somebody looking out for their best interest on the plaintiff side. People like Dave have been great for a long period of time at being able to make sure his clients are educated. And I've been fortunate to work with Dave for a lot of years, and there's nobody better that I work with in helping these claimants. So he does an awesome job.
Thank you, Todd. And I think that again, my goal is in doing these podcasts is making this information out there available to other people, so that people, I always hate the fact. I mean, as lawyers, we're so busy prosecuting the case and making our case. Really what you want to do is empower your clients to make the right decisions for them. Not to tell them what they have to do, but to give them the information. And I appreciate you coming on and taking the time to talk about structures. Hopefully, maybe sometime, maybe towards the end of next year or 6 months into the next year, we can bring you back and talk about, because there's a lot about settlements, there's a lot about liens, health insurance, Medicare, Medicaid. There's a whole lot of other things that we could talk about that I think people need to know, because again, sometimes they don't understand they're going to lose their benefits if they take the money a certain way. And unfortunately, I see lawyers who don't get that because maybe they don't do personal injury that often. And so they just dabble in it and they don't advise their clients. They may lose their SSI or they may lose their Medicaid. And so I think those are all real important topics. And hopefully maybe you'll come back in 6 months or so and we can chat about that.
I would love that. And I really appreciate the opportunity and enjoyed chatting with you today.
This is David Craig, and you've been listening to After the Crash. If you'd like more information about me or my law firm, please go to our website, ckflaw.com. Or if you'd like to talk to me, you can call 1-800-ASK-DAVID. If you would like a guide on what to do after a truck wreck, then pick up my book, Semi-Truck Wreck, A Guide for Victims and Their Families. This is available on Amazon, or you can download it for free on our website, ckflaw.com.